following is a presentation of Disruption Networks.
Join the Disruption Network crew Friday, June 8th at the Empowerment Center Block Party, 230 James Street in Utica, from 4 to 6 p.m. Music provided by our very own DJ East One. There will be vendors, grilling with the Utica Police Department, hands-on craft with BB Designs and Steamwork Ability Lab, seed bombs, lead safe demo, and come hang with the Utica Fire Department. That's Friday, June 8th at the Empowerment Center, 230 James Street in Utica. The block party is hosted by the Homeownership Center, the Mohawk Valley Association of Realtors, Steamworks Ability Lab, Lead-Free Mohawk Valley, Berkshire Bank, MVP Healthcare, BB Designs, and NeighborWorks America.
The Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley was born when 3 top producing agents with over 25 years of combined experience selling real estate joined forces to take real estate to the next level. We practice with honesty, integrity, and the knowledge to help make the buying and selling process easy and stress-free for all of our clients. We pledge to always make our clients our top priority from start to finish and even after the house is closed. We will always be a valued resource for information and assistance for our buyers and sellers. Our customers over the years have become not only past clients, but great friends. As we join hands together as the Property Sisters of the Mohawk Valley, we look forward to serving our clients and our community and making a positive difference. You can reach us at 315-601-9630 for all of your real estate needs.
When it's your hard-earned money on the line that you are investing into a home, it makes sense to choose a proven professional to assist you in making one of the biggest investments you may ever make. Josh's dedication of over 20 years to the home construction industry allows him to bring knowledge and experience to your doorstep. That means you can feel confident and comfortable with his service to you. Past clients love his attention to detail and thorough written reports. By allowing Priceless Inspections to help you make a well-informed decision concerning your property, you will find that a quality inspection is priceless. Follow Priceless Inspections on Facebook or call 315-525-8725.
Hi, this is attorney Nick Pasalacqua. The team of attorneys I have assembled at Pasalacqua & Associates has been carefully hand-picked to include the best trial attorneys in the particular areas of the law that we practice. Have you been charged with DWI or any other crime? Members of our team include former assistant district attorneys, now fighting to protect your rights 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Have you or someone you love been seriously injured in a motor vehicle accident? Members of the team at Pasalacqua & Associates include former insurance defense attorneys, now fighting to ensure that you get every penny you're entitled to. If you need legal help quick, don't waste your time or money calling anyone else. Remember, for legal help quick, you better call Nick and the team at Pasalacqua & Associates. 315-500-NICK or 315-500-6425 or visit cnytriallaw.com today.
Good evening for a special Thursday night episode of The Baseline. Here with you always is JP with my boy SPG. Special Thursday night edition, SPG. What do you think about that?
What's up, everybody? What's up, JP? A weeknight show tonight.
I like it.
I do, too. It's a little bit different. We got a whole bunch of baseball tonight, so usually when we're doing a weekend show, it's, there's one game that hasn't been played for the day, so...
It's usually Otani Sundays, or showy Sundays.
So most of the action is still yet to come for the day. So, it's exciting, and it's cool to see you sitting in the captain's chair.
Hey, listen, we're learning. I'm showing up on my off days and learning the ways of the board back here. I gotta admit, it's a more comfortable chair. It pays to be the king there, It's gonna
take some getting used to. Instead of looking that way, I'm gonna be like kind of looking over to my right.
I know, buddy, but. We're right next to each other still, and we're going to talk a lot of baseball tonight. I hope you guys stick around with us. Got a lot of news and notes to get to, some injuries happening, not things that you like to see, guys like Ronald Acuna Jr. going down, and we're going to get to your boy Reyes, I'm sure, at some point in time today. But like we said, a lot of stuff going on out there. Still looking at the Yankees and Red Sox as being pretty much pert near class of Major League Baseball right now, the way that they're playing. Other than that, everybody else is kind of also Rams.
Yankees and Red Sox still just chugging along. Boston's 8-2 in their last 10. The Yankees are 6-4 in their last 10, but they've won the last 2 games, which were against Houston, winning another series against the Houston Astros. So that was another good showing for the Yanks, and Boston and Yankees right there, still at the top of the AL East. And
10 out of 11 series for wins for the Yankees. 10 out of the last 11, including series wins against Boston, series wins against Cleveland, and 2 against Houston. So if there's a power rankings, if we were going to do a baseline power rankings and totally leaving the homerism at home, you got to have the Yankees somewhere close to the top because they have the toughest schedule and they're going out and winning the games that they have in front of them. But again, the Red Sox still there in first place. So tough, I guess we are kind of homers if I'm sitting here saying the Yankees are going to be number 1 in the power rankings, but they're still 2 games behind in the division. So I'll check that one for now. But Yankees looking impressive, as are the Red Sox.
I'm expecting it's going to be like that all summer too. Just Yankees and Red Sox running away with that division.
The Cleveland Indians have won 5 straight.
Cleveland Indians are turning things around, as we all really expected they would.
Oh, for sure. We already knew going into even coming out of our last show when we were talking about them scuffling, and the bullpen has been a lot of the issue there in Cleveland, but I think they were 22-22 the last time that we checked in on them, and they went on this little trade for a little while where they were like 19-19, then 19-20, and then 20-20, and then 20-21. They traded back wins and losses for a little while, but now they won 5 straight. They're 29-25. Clearly the class of that division as they've been, but they're only going to get separation, in that division.
Yeah, they do have to figure out the bullpen. It's a pretty atrocious bullpen right now for all the star power and big names that you associate with the Cleveland Indians bullpen. Andrew Miller, of course, and Cody Allen, the closer. It's been a mess there this year, and you got to expect at some point, with the depth they have in that organization, with the level of contender they are, where if you have a chance to go out and get a World Series championship, especially when you have gone so long without winning one. I think it's 1948. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong on that, of course. But you got to figure they're going to be going out and getting some bullpen help and trading some of the farm to restock that bullpen. Andrew Miller's hurt right now, and you don't know how he's going to be when he comes back. But that all being said, they're still in a good position, and it's something that they can overcome by adding some guys and hoping that Miller's health turns it around.
So much of the personnel in that bullpen hasn't changed. And to think about how much of a strength that bullpen was for that team last year and the last few years, to see that the same personnel down in that bullpen is really having a tough time getting it together. Kind of surprising, especially when you look at the way that Terry Francona has always been able to manage the bullpen outside of the box or outside of the norm, really putting that fireman role into use, within the last couple of years with Andrew Miller. And Andrew Miller, you talk about struggling. For somebody that's been one of the best relievers in the game for the last 5 years, to watch him struggle the way that he has, it's kind of has to be concerning. Now he's on the DL again. They got to be concerned. So like you say, an area of address is definitely that bullpen in Cleveland. Cleveland making a splash. I think they're going to bring up one of their young studs, Shane Bieber.
Yep.
Perhaps
Dave already picked him up.
Yeah, go figure that Dave picked up an Indian. But perhaps you're seeing him either come up, to shore up the back end of that rotation, or as kind of a showcase. Maybe they need to showcase some of their young talent. I.e. the Yankees doing with a Clint Frazier or a Miguel Andujar. Maybe they're showcasing some of their young talent to turn around and turn it into some riches. Maybe a position player or another bat. Or maybe somebody down in that bullpen, or both.
They did lose Brian Shaw in free agency last year to the Colorado Rockies, and Shaw had been a main cog for that bullpen for a long time too. With the Indians, he was a very good back of the game, setup man type reliever, close a game for you here and there. So he's gone now, and he's getting lit up in Colorado. I mean, most people do, I guess, but. It's funny. Even a former Cleveland Indians reliever is just kind of getting shelled right now.
Except Wade Davis. Wade Davis just seems to find a way to get it done, I guess.
Wade Davis is killing it, yeah, and Greg Holland did last year.
Greg Holland is not killing it this year. The only thing Greg Holland is killing is fantasy teams ERA and his manager, Mike Matheny. Those are the two things that Greg Holland is killing. That's if you want to look for a comp, maybe in the National League to the Cleveland Indians situation, it might be the St. Louis Cardinals in the National League, might be a direct comp to exactly what's going on with the Cleveland Indians. A lot of questions in that bullpen. They got a guy that throws seemingly 108. And if you look at Jordan Hicks's numbers, you would expect that his innings pitched to strikeout ratio would be out of this world. You would think
it's out of this world, but it's not.
It is out of this world. It's out of this world the other way.
Yeah.
It's, last I checked, I think he had something like 14 strikeouts in 30-something innings. I got to get that up. One of the most surprising stats you'll ever see for somebody that throws as hard as Jordan Hicks does. Just struggles to throw strikes. He walks a lot of guys. You got to feel like he's going to find it, but
he's only 21 years old.
Do they want to tap a kid like that as being, a leverage guy in that bullpen at this point in time? I don't think that they do. Bud Norris holding it down at the back end of that of that bullpen, but they were expecting a lot of things out of Greg Holland when they signed him to that contract, and right now he's not even worth rostering, and that's a simple truth. So maybe a thing to watch out for. Bullpen help is always going to be what's available and what's needed most at the trading deadline is going to be bullpen help, and this year will be no shortage of bullpen help, I don't think. You got teams like the Baltimore Orioles, for sake of argument, that are going to be out there to be pilfered from.
The Florida Marlins or Miami Marlins, your Kyle Bearclaw could be a trade candidate.
Brad Ziegler, even though he's been a dumpster fire the last 2 weeks or so, but you got Brad Ziegler and
somebody will pick him up,
and Brad Brock and Zach Britton with the Orioles. Maybe a guy like Green out of Detroit. These are the teams that are going to start waving the flag, soon enough.
Yeah, possibly Brad Hand in San Diego, another one you could.
How's that
keep
for
an
a
eye
get?
on.
How's that for a get for somebody's team to go out and be able to grab a guy like Brad Hand at the deadline? That could potentially win you win you a World Series. A guy like Brad Hand, who's absolutely dominant from the left side in San Diego. Could you imagine somebody with an established closer, the Red Sox or the Yankees or the Dodgers going out? I don't think they'll trade within the division, but you imagine a team like that going out and adding Brad Hand, where they can use him as that stopper guy.
It would be. We mentioned Andrew Miller already, and it would be exactly what the Cleveland Indians did 2 years ago when they traded for Andrew Miller. You could have Brad Hand as that guy that you could throw in there at any point after your starter comes out, and still have your closer at the end of the bullpen to keep that part consistent to how it was before, but still have this incredible weapon to be able to just throw in there at any point. I agree completely that of all the guys that I assume will be available, and there's always some surprises. But right now, out of all the relief pitchers that I would assume have a good chance of being available, Brad Hand would be number one on my list.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a guy I would want on my team for sure. Interesting how this is going to start to develop. When do teams start to sell, Sean? We've seen it happen this early. We've already seen a trade.
I was going to say, you've already have started to see it a little bit with that trade between Tampa Bay and Seattle last weekend. Tampa trading Alex Colomé, their closer, already.
Seattle, no stranger to making trades. I saw some interesting stat earlier in this week that Seattle has, by a landslide, made the most trades over the last couple years.
Yeah, they always make really small trades, too, like in bunches.
This doesn't, this seems like a small trade for them.
This one's a pretty big trade.
But this is a pretty big trade. They didn't go out and get their closer, and that would be considered like a big trade when the Cubs go out and get in Aroldis Chapman.
Right.
Like that's a blockbuster deal because they're getting their back end of the rotation, not rotation, but back end of the bullpen.
This one
guy.
In particular, I definitely wouldn't classify as a small trade, but they are famous for in the offseason they'll make like 3 trades in one day, and you'll look at the list of guys that were acquired or traded away, and you've heard of a few of them here and there, but it's they just shuffle players in and out of there.
Jerry DiPoto has made a living off of making these trades. He made a lot with the Yankees over the last 5 or 6 years. There was always those the Jesus Montero trade for Michael Pineda, just naming a few. But this Alex Colomé into their bullpen, that all of a sudden makes them it really makes them contenders in that West. Not that they already weren't, but they take it on the chin with Robinson Cano going.
Yeah, they needed to do something to spark the team.
I totally agree.
And getting Denard Span shouldn't be overlooked as part of that trade either.
No, because that allows D. Gordon,
who should be back soon.
He's going to go back to second base to take over for Robinson Cano, and it gives you a legitimate center fielder out there to replace D. Gordon in center field. So, no, definitely a smart, shrewd move. Smaller name players, per se, right? Alex Colomé and Denard Span. It wasn't Mike Trout and Craig Kimbrell, right? But a really strategic move, and maybe that gets the ball going here for trade season to start happening. We've identified some sellers already on this show. We've identified some sellers, and some of those sellers, even the Cincinnati Reds with a lot of pieces there, some of those sellers are gonna prove really worthy for some of these contending teams. But who becomes the buyer out there? Who really thinks that they have a shot and decides that they're going to go all in? A team like the Brewers comes to mind. Or the Brewers were very aggressive this offseason. They've proved that they're willing and ready to go for it right now.
They're 15 games over 500 right now.
You got to see them
4.5 in front of the Cubs.
You got to see them going out and getting a rotation guy.
They are
at
now
least.
a prime team to be going out there and targeting some of the pitchers that might be on the market, like a Chris Archer. Even a Madison Bumgarner, who knows? I mean, that would require quite the haul of players back. But, a month or two goes by and we're at deadline time. And the San Francisco Giants, if they're out of it at that point, do they entertain the idea of trading Bumgarner and making a franchise organizational strategical change and start stockpiling future assets instead of, holding on to that ace? And he's still only 28 years old, Bumgarner. I know it feels like he's been around forever.
It does, because he's got 3 titles.
Yep.
And he was, he was an absolute stud for those titles as well.
And he's the type of guy who never even really looked too young, even when he was like 20. It wasn't like Tim Lincecum, who looked like he was 12 years old.
Big, slim Timmy Jim.
Madison Bumgarner, 21-year-old, pitching in the majors, looked like he was 30 at the time.
We haven't even updated on the Tim Lincecum saga lately. We briefly touched on it on one of our first shows. Is he even rostered anymore with the Texas Rangers? How's he doing?
I haven't heard much. Let's see. I'll do a quick little bit. I guess he is eligible to come off the DL. He's been on the DL this entire time. I don't know if he has been activated and sent to the minors or what's going on with him. But, there hasn't really been much on the Tim Lincecum front. And I know in spring training there was talk of maybe him being a reliever, possibly even a closer for them. And there's been almost no Lincecum news.
But back to Bumgarner, not to go off on a Tim Lincecum, big slim Timmy Jim tangent here, but back to Bumgarner. It's going to take an awful lot, not only to convince San Francisco that it's time to sell,
right? Because they're not out there saying, "Hey, come get Madison Bumgarner. He's available for trade." So it's for a contending team to really make a serious pitch, especially if it was at this point. Next couple weeks, once you get really down to the deadline, you have a better idea of where your team stands as far as if you have any hope of making the postseason or not. But especially right now, like people talking to them, and I'm sure there has been teams that contacted him, especially because Bumgarner's been hurt. So maybe they figure, maybe that'll hurt his value, which any smart organization wouldn't take that into account, assuming he's going to be okay here.
No, you look at the type of injury. It's not like he's coming off his second,
right. It's not an elbow. It's not a shoulder.
It's not a shoulder or an elbow. One injury was because he was being stupid. This one seems to be pretty mild, and he's supposed to come back without restriction. He signed at a reasonable deal for the caliber pitcher that he is. He's owed another $24 million this year, and $12 million this year and $12 million next year. $24 million, and he's unrestricted free agent in 2020. So with an extra year of control on a guy like Bumgarner, you really got to wow the San Francisco Giants with the package that you give him back.
Yeah,
he's not going to be the cost-effective option like, let's say, a guy like Cole Hamels will be. Cole Hamels
or like a Tyson Ross from San Diego.
Another guy that's J-Hap is a name over the last few days that I've been hearing popped around. It's but you look at a team like the Yankees or the Red Sox. Is a J-Hap really an improvement over what's still sitting there?
I like the J-Hap mentions. You might hear his name a little later in the show, just to throw a little hint out there.
You like that? we're always on the same page, buddy. So, you know, it's going to be a J-Hap kind of day. We can get his brother Ian Hap up in here. I don't think they're brothers, but we get his brother Ian Hap up here on the show as well.
His cousin.
Are they? Yeah, well,
I don't know.
Whatever. We're going to talk about the Haps. The Haps on the Haps. We should just have a whole segment.
We should do a segment every week. The Haps on the Haps. Just give their stats and move on.
What's the Haps on the Haps, my man? But $24 million over the next 2 years, which is, you know, that's reasonable if you look at a deal like David Price's deal, where he's making $30 million, you know, a year. $12 million a year for Madison Bumgarner, pretty doable. But you really got to have to wow the San Francisco Giants to get that. You know, in the Yankees' case, you're looking at an Andujar, Anna Frazier, and maybe another top,
maybe a Justice Sheffield,
another top guy.
Yeah, you would have to really pony up some serious young talent.
I would say that
away.
I would kind of hold my breath on the Madison Bumgarner moving, but you're going to see guys like Danny Duffy and Jay Happ and Michael Fulmer. Michael Fulmer's another guy that's going to take an incredible package to get away because he's under organizational control.
Maybe a Dan Straley.
There's another one. Yeah, these are all names that we're hearing bopped around, you know, the trade deadline type guys. Maybe Dylan Bundy, you know, just to give a guy from Baltimore who I know is going to be sellers. You're going to have to come up with an incredible package to get Michael Fulmer, too, just because of the pure control that he's under. He's under the control for another 3 years, I think. Organizational control, they're paying him $700,000. So Michael Fulmer is going to command a package too. But a guy like Danny Duffy presents an interesting case for some teams. If he's an upgrade at that 4th or 5th slot, Danny Duffy's going to be a get for someone. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a lot of pitching-driven, you know, free agency coming up here near the deadline. I think it's going to be very, very pitcher heavy. Chris Archer is another guy who's definitely going to
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that's usually where these teams that are contending really need, even if they don't need it, where they can actually improve from being a hopeful to maybe a favorite. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. We're still a couple months away from the deadline, but, you know, here we are on the last day of May. Tomorrow's June 1st.
So we were worried about getting to the season, and now we're sitting here. We're June 1st.
June 1st. We're over 2 months into the season now.
It's wonderful.
We mentioned Madison Bumgarner. He's expected back on Tuesday. He had a rehab start a few days ago, and I think he struck out 8 guys in 3 innings.
Is that it?
That was it. There was a couple guys that somehow got away.
You know, maybe that's a shot in the arm for San Francisco. They're only 4 games under 500. Nobody's running away with that division out there. The Colorado Rockies, I think, are 4 or 5 games over 500. Let me pull that up right here.
And Arizona's been in a free fall.
Free fall is not even the word. They're almost even with the Cincinnati Reds. You know, for all the stuff that we talked about the Cincinnati Reds so far this year on the show, they've certainly turned it around. You know, a little bit. They're only 4-6 in their last 10, as opposed to being like 1-9.
Dave's checking in, and he said Lincecum has pitched in 8 games at Round Rock with a 7.45 ERA and a 2.06 WHIP.
That's good, right?
And he's walked 7 and struck out 10 in 9 2/3 innings. And there is question whether if he is major league ready. You think there's question if he's major league ready when he's got a 7.45
at Round Rock.
Minors?
Listen, next stop for him on his rehab tour is the Sugarland Skeeters of the Western Frontier League, I think. Timmy Slim Jim out there, if you're listening, my man, pick it up, man. Pick it up. We want to see you back in your funky delivery. Maybe you can go join Matt Harvey at the back end of that Cincinnati Reds rotation.
He's another one that could get traded again, Matt Harvey.
As long as his velocity has increased with Cincinnati, so he's up 2 or 3 miles an hour. The results haven't been horrible for him in Cincinnati. So as long as he looks like he's a quiet, non-problem in that clubhouse, which, all indications are that there's been no problems with him in that clubhouse.
He would cost nothing more than like a high A ball prospect.
That's it.
For anybody.
They're going to take a shot. If somebody's going to take a shot, Cincinnati's going to take a shot. They're going to have to improve. They gave away Devin Mesoraco. So they're going to have to make an improvement over Devin Mesoraco to make a deal for Matt Harvey.
Yeah, I think they were over him there, though. He'd been hurt, more than Matt Harvey had. He
seems to have been doing okay.
He's doing well there, yeah.
He's gone over to the Mets, Devin Mesoraco.
That trade has actually worked out for both teams so far.
Yeah, the Mets are certain.
The Mets drop the Matt Harvey headache, and they get a catcher.
Yeah, I was about to say the Mets have turned it around, but, they're over 500. So I guess we can't wave the white flag on the Mets yet. And 2 weeks ago, if you had said that to Mets fans, they would have called you a liar because it looked like they were in a free fall. The Arizona Diamondbacks have taken over that position now. 3-7 in their last 10. At one point, I think they lost 11 out of 12.
Yeah.
Not good out there in Arizona. And you wonder what's going to go on. I was stout on my pick of that division before we started the season this year. I said that the NL West is the best division in baseball. Prove me wrong. Convince me otherwise. Well, the NL West is showing me otherwise. They're out there proving me wrong on a daily basis. Not a whole lot of great ball getting played out there except by one team. One team sitting back there in third place, 3 games under 500. Honestly, right now at this juncture in time, playing the best baseball out west, and that's the Los Angeles Dodgers. You thought that maybe Arizona and Colorado could kind of run away and hide a little bit with the Dodgers scuffling and seemingly them playing great baseball to start the year. But now all of a sudden, they're certainly still in the mix.
Well, you know what coincides with that little bit of a turnaround is the return of Justin Turner. I haven't seen what his stats have been, and it may be just a coincidence, but it seems like since he's been back, that team has turned it around a little bit. They still got a lot of work to do.
Heart and soul type guy. We always like to talk. We joke around about the hard hat and lunch pail guys. That's a Justin Turner right there. He's a hard hat and lunch pail guy.
Speaking of the Dodgers, extremely good news for them tonight is Clayton Kershaw returns to the mound tonight for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He comes off the DL. He'll start, and we'll see. I mean, like you said, they've already kind of started turning it around a little bit. Kershaw comes back. Maybe they get on a little bit of a roll here.
One of the groups that both of us belong to today, I saw a comment, somebody asking whether or not they should start Clayton Kershaw tonight. And the first response, I think, summed it up perfectly. Somebody said, I don't care if they rolled his corpse out there to the mound. I'm starting him. Questions about starting him at any time, against any team, against any matchup, you should just trade him to somebody else in your league. That's it.
And we'll be talking about some of the top pitchers in the game a little bit later on in the show, too.
7th inning stretch, Sean and I are going to give our 7 best pitchers in the game right now. It's a good one, man. I've been looking forward to this one. Kind of my sentiments exactly. I don't care how bad he's looked at any given time, especially in the playoffs. Clayton Kershaw's a god out there on the mound. And if you have questions about starting him at any time, against any team, against any matchup, you should just trade him to somebody else in your league. That's it.
And we'll be talking about some of the...
Into 7, I think that we're probably going to be on the same page on at least 5 of them. Who knows? Because there's a couple that are heads and tails, obviously heads and tails above the rest, but...
top pitchers in the game a little bit later on in the show, too.
7th inning stretch, Sean and I are going to give our 7 best pitchers in the game right now. It's a good one, man. I've been looking forward to this one. Such a pitching-dominated sport now. I'm looking forward to getting into the 7th inning stretch today, see what our similarities are. Our top 21, because, I mean, really, there's that many out there.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I think I have at least 2 honorable mentions that I had to write down.
Well, condensing it down, pitching is my vice.
And there's some real good ones to talk about.
Yeah, I just feel like the list could have been like 2.
I'll get into that a little bit later.
What do you think about the whole pine tar thing? I don't know if you've noticed that. It's such a pitching-dominated league, and now they're actually discussing ways in which, pitchers could maybe gain extra control over the ball and allowing pitchers to put foreign substances on their hands. And what do you think about that whole thing? Because it seems to be a big deal. Earlier in this week, you had Trevor Bauer calling out, basically indicting the entire Houston Astros staff.
He's been doing that for weeks.
Basically indicting the entire Houston Astros staff in regards to putting pine tar on the ball and increasing spin rate. You hear spin rate and spin rate. It used to be velocity when we were kids. It was how hard do you throw, but now it's not how hard do you throw. It's how fast do you spin it. And so it came up again. It sprouted itself last night. I heard a lot of chatter about this whole pine tar thing with Nathan Eovaldi starting last night for Tampa. Pretty good showing. I think he went 5 innings of no-hit ball yesterday in his return. Tampa Bay took a flyer on him. That's another guy that you could see get moved, is a Nate Eovaldi, because Tampa Bay's really in for nothing on him.
So they'd be smart to
if he can prove for the next 3 or 4 starts, going into July that he can be worth his salt. I mean, the guy throws hard, but last night he was clearly going to his glove a whole lot last night, and seemingly putting something on there to let him gain more control over the fastball. What do you think about that? I want to hear your thoughts.
I don't like it. It's just going to be a distraction, and you're going to get guys like Trevor Bauer that either are trying to play the game by the rules and criticizing others, or jealous that he can't do it. Who knows what the reasoning is there. And I just think it's just it's not fair for throwing that. He better be damn sure that was really going on to be dragging the Houston Astros through the mud over it, for one thing. But
I totally agree.
I'm not a fan of it. I mean, just play the game like it should be played, and I don't know. I don't have much to say about it.
All right.
What do you think?
I don't like it. The whole it helps me gain control over the ball, and the ball is a dangerous weapon. That argument can be heard and lended merit to, but I think that Major League Baseball, the chatter that I heard last night is Major League Baseball is looking into not making the ball feel like a cue ball, because apparently that's been the complaint from a lot of.
They want to make changes to the ball to kind of cater to people that justify using substances, you're saying?
Yes. So Steve Phillips, caught Steve Phillips' show this week, the leadoff spot on MLB Network radio on Sirius. Steve Phillips had an interesting, not a thought, but some interesting research that happened. Major League Baseball went into all of these factories where Rawlings is making the official balls for more or less of a quality control type situation, and actually found that the thing that's increasing the spin rates on the baseball is from previous eras. So, they say that the ball is juiced, right? And so that's the whole argument, was Major League Baseball was looking into the whole juiced ball argument. And actually what they found is that the balls might be traveling so much further because they're actually perfectly made and quality controlled so well that all of these balls are coming off perfect. They're perfectly spherical, and the quality control is to a point where they're all coming off identical.
I would buy that explanation. Why not? It makes sense to me.
So they found no changes in seam height, no changes in overall weight of the ball, no changes in anything in these factories. I believe that they're made in Mexico or somewhere like that. Panama is where Rawlings has the factory. And Major League Baseball has come out and said, yeah, the balls aren't juiced, not juiced. I don't know. I buy it just like you buy it. If they're,
it sounds reasonable.
They're flying through the air because they're more spherical.
Whether it's true or not, I don't know. If it's not true, it's a pretty darn good cover, because I would buy it.
I buy it. And so another thing that I learned a little bit about this week was the humidor. I don't know how much you know about the humidor.
Oh, yeah.
Those balls go in a month beforehand, before they're allowed to be used, and each one gets stamped like an egg. They stamp them. This kind of quality control on the stuff that's going into the humidor. And a representative from each team goes down with whoever's in charge of getting the balls for the game, goes down and makes sure that they're taking only the ones from an approved date. It's pretty wild. Pretty wild what they do in the game. Get used to it. Anyway, there's my scientific tangent for the night. Back to news and notes. SPG, what you got next?
That's the baseline science right there.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, it looked
identical. Acuna's was a little after the bag, but, so I don't want to hear those guys making the argument that the bag's too high, even though I took like it was more an awkward way that he was trying to stop. But how awful did that look for Ronald Acuna?
Yeah, it looked bad.
Really good news for baseball in general, but especially for the Atlanta Braves with what they got going on. Totally agree with that, and maybe it should be made out of a different substance or a secondary bag for the runners to cross, yada, yada, yada. The bag didn't really look like it caused that. It looked like it was more an awkward way that he was trying to stop. But how awful did that look for Ronald Acuna?
Yeah, it looked bad.
Really good news for baseball in general, but especially for the Atlanta Braves with what they got going on in that NL East there. The Braves definitely need their cornerstone outfielder for the next 10 years.
I saw a tweet. I forget who it was by. I think it was.
It's
Speaking of hyped prospects with injuries, Alex Reyes yesterday comes back after missing over a year, like almost 100% of the time when you see somebody have an ACL injury. And Acuna did not grab that way, and he ended up being right, in his just analysis of watching.
Tweets started coming out how he had a significant loss in velocity during the game.
Yeah, I think he dropped by 4 miles per hour on his fastball in the 4th inning, and that was only at 70-something pitches. He said almost universally, just because of the way the ligament works, the ACL works, they almost always grab for the spot right below their knee. I think it was his first start in almost 2 years, and because he had Tommy John surgery. He comes back, he dominates in the minor leagues on his rehab assignment.
103 pitches. So yesterday when they took him out after 70, at first I just said, you know what? 4 innings pitched, looked awesome.
Yep, your one, because that would have been a shame.
It would have been a shame for baseball in general. You're right, especially with how much hype he was brought into the game with, and the Albies down there.
And after the game, they interviewed him, and he says, "No, I'm fine. I feel fine. I just got fatigued out there, and I'll be all right." And then today it comes out, he does a video of it, but man, did it look bad. And yeah, of course, baseball fans everywhere, no matter if you're a Braves fan or not, are happy to hear that wasn't a major. See, just in the split second after the injury happens is what the player grabs for. And Acuna, when he went down, he did not immediately grab for his knee. And did you see his stats?
I did.
He was putting up in the minors. It was incredible.
One stat jumped off the page at me from his last rehab start. You know what that was? 170 pitches. They're just, they're limited in. So I go back and I look at his rehab starts, 103 pitches in his last start. So I said,
he went 7 innings.
Something's got to be going on. And so sure.
It was some kind of sports doctor. I wish I remembered his name, but he said when he watched the Acuna injury, the first thing you look at is to have a significant injury. I don't think it's Tommy John level. I'd have to look and see what it actually was, what the diagnosis was. But they put him right back on the DL today, so he's already came off, pitched 4 innings, and right back on the DL.
That's good, right?
That's good, right?
Billy Burns checking in. Billy, you kind of just hit the nail on the head. You must have been inside my head there when we were talking about the whole pine tar thing. Billy's texting in about body armor. That's the equalizer right there, right? So the hitters are wearing all this body armor. So many rules or allowances have been made to protect the hitters.
It's a very good point.
It's a definite good point. He says Barry Bonds would have spent a season worth of games on the DL without that body armor. And you know what? That body armor protected his elbow. So chances are he's right. He's absolutely right. Plus,
you ever see the elbow guard Eric Thames wears?
They've restricted, as far as I remember,
it's huge.
They restricted, just like the NHL does with goalie pads. Major League Baseball did that with the elbow pads at one point in time. I don't know if that's still in effect, but they did that with the elbow pads because they were just getting ridiculous. They were almost taking up the strike zone. So I agree with you out there, Billy. I don't like the body armor either. I think when you get, again, everything that we talk about in terms of gameplay always boils back down to money. All of it. So the body armor is probably encouraged when you're spending $13 million a year on a guy. You want to keep him on the field as much as possible. And, but I don't agree with loading up on that body armor either, Billy. So excellent point out there. Thanks for listening.
A couple other real quick notes, and then we'll get into the rundown and do some standings real quick and recap a few leaders for Major League Baseball stats. Noah Syndergaard went on the DL this week.
Doesn't look like much major.
Doesn't look major, probably minimum stay. Adam Eaton is, I believe, starting a rehab assignment.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's good, right?
It is.
So he's starting a rehab assignment. I mentioned Madison Bumgarner. He's going to be back on Tuesday. Miguel Cabrera is expected back this weekend.
Daniel Murphy, another guy.
Daniel Murphy will be back soon. Did you see Rhys Hoskins? What happened to him?
No.
He fouled a ball off of his own face and his jaw broke.
That's awesome.
I saw the highlight of that the other night, and that was another one that didn't look too good.
And it's not bad for somebody that's been out there scuffling. Maybe he can go and maybe turn it around, but
yeah,
you don't want to see that stuff.
No, you don't.
So he did it on a full swing?
Full swing, yeah.
Full swing and
full
just
swing, ball
foul tip
right
right
off the
back
bat,
into his face.
perfectly back into his jaw in the worst possible spot.
I bet that didn't feel good.
Yeah. So he's going to be out for a little bit. We mention him almost every show. Jose Bautista is with the Mets now.
He's with a different team every time we talk. So
another team that makes almost no sense for Jose Bautista to be joining.
No, and the first night that he was there, he contributes. I think he had a game-tying RBI late in the game.
368 for him.
Listen, Joey Bats just needed a home. He needed someplace to be loved. We from the get-go when Atlanta signed him, we knew that wasn't going to work out. It's just not even close to the core that they have going on down there. It's not even close. It's so far outside the box for them, but it makes a little more sense, I guess, for the Mets. Interleague play coming up, the good stretch of interleague play that they're going to do at the beginning of June. Maybe the Mets are heavy in the AL ballparks. I hadn't looked at their schedule, but maybe that's the reason that they're going for it. But the Mets were a train wreck when they went out and got them. So
yeah,
anything to go and help the Mets out there. Some bright spots for the Mets right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Brandon Nimmo.
He's playing well.
Has been a bright spot.
DeGrom is having a great year.
DeGrom, we might hear a little bit more about him later on too, Jacob DeGrom. But there's been some bright spots for the Mets. 2 games above 500. You can't write them off quite yet. They're not playing the best baseball in the world, and they're certainly not going to be in the conversation with the Braves and the Nationals quite yet. They're a little behind, but had they not started off, what were they, 11-1, 12-1?
Yeah, they got off to a very good start this year.
You'd be talking about waving the white flag. Awful lot of chatter out there. I don't know if you've heard it. An awful lot of chatter about the Mets trading Thor or DeGrom.
I've heard it mentioned, but I don't think it makes any sense.
It doesn't make any sense from an organizational standpoint unless you're blowing up the entire thing. If you're blowing up the entire thing, then yeah, all hands on deck. You can trade 2 guys like that, but
all the moves that they have made, in the last 6 months, even before the season started, you bring in Adrian Gonzalez, you bring in Jose Bautista. Those moves don't scream some team who's ready to go out and blow it up. They're still trying to add these veteran
Jay Bruce
pieces.
and Todd Frazier. So no, it does not scream like a team that's ready to blow it up. Not at all. So any of that DeGrom and Thor talk out there, that's another team that would absolutely need to be blown away by the package that they get back for one of those guys. They'd have to be blown away. That's the cornerstone of a franchise, those 2 guys. There's not a franchise in the game right now that wouldn't take those 2 guys in their rotation. And there's not a rotation outside of maybe Houston, but I don't even think Houston's rotation couldn't accommodate those 2 guys. Somebody's getting kicked out of every rotation in the game for those 2 guys. That's the type of caliber player that those 2 guys are. So you're going to have to wow the Mets to get Thor or DeGrom away from them. But who knows? We've seen stranger things happen. If you weren't going to be rebuilding and you go and make those trades, that just kick-started your whole rebuild right there, because you got to wave the white flag at that point in time if you're the Mets, right?
Pretty much, yeah, at that point. So one other interesting thing caught my eye is San Francisco recalled a young pitcher named Derek Rodriguez. Are you familiar with Derek Rodriguez?
Tell me about Derek Rodriguez.
Derek Rodriguez. And he pitched, I think, 3 innings in his debut in relief, and he may be starting for them this coming weekend because Samardzija just went back on the DL.
Again?
Derek Rodriguez is Pudge Rodriguez's son. He's a pitcher for the San Francisco Giants right now.
Pudge Rodriguez
has
a son old enough to be in the majors. That's disgusting.
And it's funny.
It makes me feel old.
It's funny he's a pitcher because you can just. At first, I was thinking like, oh, it's weird he's not a catcher.
I bet you Pudge could have pitched.
And then I thought, you know what? It makes complete sense that he's a pitcher because Pudge Rodriguez is your catcher, calling the game in the backyard and teaching you how to do things as a pitcher.
How's that for a tough critic in the backyard?
Yeah, no kidding. So, yeah, I thought that was a cool story. He pitched pretty well.
That is a pretty cool story.
Looks like he's going to make a start, at least one start here.
Pudge Rodriguez had an absolute howitzer for an arm. So I bet you his kid probably knows how to throw a ball, right? So we're looking at in the next couple of years. You want to feel old for a second before we get into our standings and league leaders? You want to feel old? Within the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to have Pudge's kid pitching We're going to have Vlad Guerrero Jr. We're going to have Bo Bichette, son of former Rocky and former Red Sox Dante Bichette. We're going to have Biggio's kid is going to be up. All these major leaguers having these kids come up and play now. You want to feel old. We traded these guys baseball cards, you know. I had Craig Biggio's rookie card and things of that nature. And now we're going to be watching their kids play. Man.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those. Yeah, we're old moments.
Do you remember Pepperidge Farm remembers?
The show's sponsored by Pepperidge Farm because we remember. But in all seriousness, shout out to one of our sponsors here, Nick Pasalacqua and Associates. For legal help quick, you better call
Nick.
Call attorney Nick Pasalacqua and the team at Pasalacqua and Associates. 315-500-NICK. That's 315-500-NICK. Check out his website at cnytriallaw.com.
That's a very clever phone number.
It is, right? It works out perfectly. It says Nick right in it.
I wonder if they just assigned it to him and he looked and he's like, "Oh my God, it spells Nick. What are the
coincidence.
odds?
Perfect.
Amazing."
I got to start a law firm and make that my number.
Hey, listen, he did it the backwards way, right? You know what? I got this number. I might as well go out and be an attorney. So for legal help, quick, call Nick, literally.
315-500-NICK.
Call Nick.
So let's get into the rundown. Let's go through a quick rundown through the standings here and talk about some things that kind of stand out and some things that might have changed since last time we talked. Honestly, there's not a lot that has really changed much in the last couple weeks. Everything is kind of really about how we would expect it to have been a couple weeks ago right now. Not many changes.
The Yankees are out there playing great baseball, and the Red Sox are out there playing better baseball.
Yep, Yankees 2 games back right now.
It's just been happening the entire season, even with the Yankees winning 17 out of 18 at one point in time, and even with them winning 10 out of 11 series, still 2 games back of the Red Sox. The Red Sox go at Houston for a tough series coming up here. So
Yankees have played 4 less games than the Red Sox right now, too.
And they've also played a considerably tougher schedule. It's worth mentioning that the schedule hasn't been nearly balanced. But the Red Sox are about to get into the teeth of their schedule with 4 at Houston here. 3 at Houston. Are they playing tonight? Yeah, they're playing tonight.
Pedroia just coming back for them, too.
If they're playing tonight, it's a 4-game set. So a 4-game set at Houston, that's enough to humble even the strongest teams out there, except the Yankees.
Oh, it's worth mentioning. I can't believe we didn't, but they DFA'd Hanley Ramirez last week.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Big news right there. You got to be effing up if you get DFA'd on a contract like that. You know something's got to be going on. Yeah, he was scuffling, but still hitting 254, I believe, something like that. The power numbers were okay. The RBIs were okay.
He's a killer, too.
He's a Yankee killer.
He's a Yankee killer.
So he had to be one of them cancers out there. And you know what we didn't see? We didn't see a deal negotiated off the waiver wire for him either. So he's sitting out there as a UFA, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe that's a guy that a team looks at adding another bat. How's that for a complimentary bat?
Oh, that's a great addition for a contender, as long as you're not worried about him in the clubhouse.
The clubhouse stuff. As long as you're not worried about that stuff, that's a great 7-hitter.
If teams are picking up, 2 different teams are picking up Jose Bautista this year, I would imagine that there's still a spot for Hanley Ramirez.
How about him going back to the Dodgers?
Can he play shortstop again? Put him back at short?
I don't think with the hair in the shape that it's in, he's doing much as shortstop.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Although Russ Martin played shortstop the other day.
Russell Martin did get a start at shortstop, which is amazing, and it only lends to how good of an athlete Russell Martin's been. But yeah, that's an interesting point as well. Can we go back to quickly while we're doing this rundown? The Tampa Bay Rays are still using
5 in a row right now.
Still using the opener. They're still out there using,
and they've won 5 in a row.
Relievers as starters. Revolutionizing the game quietly. The Tampa Bay Rays, 2 games over 500. They would be leading, a few divisions in baseball, or pert near close to the top of the AL Central, the NL West. They'd be right there in the thick of things.
I pegged them as the worst team in Major League Baseball at the beginning of the year. It was between the Miami Marlins and the Tampa Bay Rays.
Tampa Bay Rays. We both
did. And I said Tampa Bay.
Totally based on their very confusing offseason. A very, we're giving up completely in our offseason. They let Corey Dickerson just go. They made some trades down there where we were talking about Kevin Kiermaier, the old joke. He's sitting there waving the white flag. Please, either trade me or get me somebody, but
Poor Kevin Kiermaier.
Poor Kevin. Well, he's on the DL now, too, so I don't think it matters too much. But then they're out there. There's still some intriguing pieces on that team. So they're going to be sellers. They're hanging around at 28 and 26, but they're going to be sellers. Toronto has started to hit.
They already are sellers. We already
Colomé,
we already talked about Colomé and Span. Got traded last week. And you're going to see some more of it.
Yeah, you're definitely going to see more out of the Rays.
And Toronto right behind them, 14 games out of first.
Yeah, 3-7 on their last 10.
6 under 500 now.
Another thing jumping off the leaderboard here for the Red Sox. The Red Sox are at a plus 89 differential. Plus 89. That's
301 runs.
I want everybody out there to put that in perspective. They scored 300 runs through the first 56 games of the season, and have scored 89 more runs than their opponents in the first 56 games of the season. That's obscene. That's obscene. If I don't know. And the Houston Astros, 123
I was going to say,
runs.
I know we're not on the AL West yet, but 123.
123
and a lot of that is due to their ridiculous pitching.
It's
have
all due to pitching
they
because
have 20 runs
They haven't scored nearly as much as Boston has, and the differential is just huge. And that happens when your top 4 guys are all under 2 ERAs, and Charlie Morton is the next coming of Nolan Ryan for you all of a sudden. You talk about organizational philosophies, and we've talked about it before, but how bad were the Pittsburgh Pirates utilizing Charlie Morton? If the story's true that they're only making him pitch to contact, geez, guys.
Well, his velocity jumped like 3 miles per hour as soon as he got to Houston too. So he changed his approach or something.
It's that pine tar.
Something happened there.
Totally that pine tar. Spin rate. His spin rate increased.
I wonder what Trevor Bauer thinks about that.
Trevor Bauer is thinking, damn, I wish I was on the Houston Astros. That's what he's thinking. Apparently him and Garrett Cole were good friends at some point in time in their careers, or college, or Garrett Cole is married to Trevor Bauer's sister, or something like that.
No, they went to college together.
They went to college together?
Garrett Cole used to make fun of Trevor Bauer when he was he was a senior and Trevor Bauer was a freshman, told him he was never going to make it.
Oh, so
who it is?
Trevor Bauer's just out there sticking it to Garrett Cole.
You know who it is?
Doing,
it's Brandon Crawford's sister is married to Garrett Cole.
Aha! I knew I saw that at some point. You talk about Brandon Crawford. There's a guy we can talk about quick. Brandon Crawford's been pretty hot out there, hitting well over 300 for the Frisco Giants out there. Another guy out in the NL West been hot, not to jump on tangents, but Matt Kemp kind of tearing it up out there, a little resurgent.
Yeah, I think he's leading the NL in batting right now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's hitting like 350. The Baltimore Orioles bringing up the rear in the AL East.
You're going to hear that
17 and
all
39, and they're going to just get worse. Over to the Central, the Cleveland Indians, 4 games up now, whereas they were only like 2 games up before when they were 500. 4 games up and 4 games over 500.
5-game win streak.
5-game winning streak out there for Cleveland. You knew they were going to right the ship, and it's an easy division to right the ship in. The Detroit Tigers, Minnesota Twins, Kansas City Royals, and Chicago White Sox are going to be bringing up the rear. The Minnesota Twins, 7 games under 500, have to be extremely disappointed at this juncture.
Byron Buxton has been a major bust this season.
Back on the DL again.
It happens every season. Like, it takes him 3 or 4 months to get going, and then he'll be great for a month or two in August, September. And there'll be high hopes for him again coming into the next year. He did great at the end of the year. He's turned it around. He's still really young, too. And there's a lot of raw talent there, but he has just been such a disappointment. And like you said, he's hurt again. He's back on the DL, aggravated his toe injury.
You start the year like Willie Mays Hayes last year, and then all of a sudden you look like Ken Griffey Jr. for the last 3 months of the year. And you come right back into that old Willie Mays Hayes stuff to start this year. So they got to be frustrated with that, too.
Miguel Sano missed a month there, too.
He's back. He absolutely tore it up on his minor league assignment. I don't know if you saw that. He had like 6 home runs in 5 minor league games, and then came up and struck out like 7 times out of 10 plate appearances. So Miguel Sano, right the ship, buddy. I need you. I need my big first baseman bat to come back. Kansas City Royals are another team that might be a stellar. We didn't talk about Kelvin Herrera possibly being on the trade wire there, but there's another good get for somebody to go out and get for.
Yeah, he could be good.
Whether they need a closer or they need another.
He could be good for the Cleveland Indians. Yeah. Herrera. I think he'd be a good addition there.
That would make Dave very happy.
I don't know.
His 2 teams coming together to make a trade.
There you go.
And the Chicago White Sox, a team that won't be in sell mode per se because they're in rebuild mode, but maybe a few pieces there that
there's like some bullpen pieces.
The James Shields and guys
Nate
like
Jones.
Nate Jones. Guys that could be pilfered for maybe a small return.
Soria, maybe.
Kind of help. Well, he's not doing himself much.
He's kind of in the same boat as Brad Ziegler, is just not pitching well at all.
Not doing himself any favors.
They're trying to showcase him to build up some value, and it's not happening.
Yeah, but you're going to see a time in Chicago White Sox near future where guys like Michael Kopech start to come up and maybe make an impact on the big league.
Carlos Rodon be back soon, too.
Yep. But, yeah, so you got to expect that Cleveland's going to just start to separate themselves, as they already started to the last 2 weeks here. Moving on to the AL West, 3 teams hanging out up at the top of the AL West. The Los Angeles Angels kind of hanging tough, 30-27, 3 games over and 5 games back. Seattle at 33-22.
Seattle is what sticks out to me.
They are taking it on the chin.
Seattle sticks out to me.
Sticking and moving with that Robbie Cano deal. They just didn't let it affect them. 7-3 on their last 10.
Just 1 game back of Houston.
1 game back of the defending champion Houston Astros.
With a +8 differential compared to Houston's 123, even though they're 1 game behind.
1 game back. The Houston Astros have outscored their opponents by 123 runs. The Seattle Mariners by 8. 1 game difference. It's a funny game, this baseball, right? Funny game. But good for the Seattle Mariners. I mean, they have a legitimate ace in James Paxton. Not too much at the back end of that rotation. Maybe that's an area of opportunity for them. But the lineup is producing. Guys like Haniger and Gene Segura. The aforementioned D. Gordon coming back soon. Hanging tough.
Some of their back of the rotation pitchers have been pretty good too, like Marco Gonzalez, Mike Leake has had his moments.
Mike Leake, what a quiet get for Seattle to go out and be pitching the way that he is.
Felix Hernandez has been awful.
Well,
awful.
That's what happens. That's what happens. I'm not going to chuck stones at one of the best, maybe who's ever done it. For peak, if we're comparing peak to peak. One of the best that's ever done it. But, I mean, he doesn't look like he really has his heart involved in it anymore.
And that puts Seattle in another tough position is, do you take him out of the rotation at some point? His ERA is almost 7.
Yes, you do. If you're Jerry DiPoto out there, right? Yes, you do. You can't hesitate to make that just because he's nostalgia and he's earned the right to be in your rotation. If the question arises, where he gets so bad and do I have 4 guys better than him, then the 4 guys better than him need to step up and take those roles. You can't sacrifice, every win is important, especially in the position that they're in the division they're in, where it's going to be a real tough winning that division. That's going to be a tough task. So you can't afford to lose games when you're going to be tightly bunched against the rest of the league for the wild card. You can't afford to win or lose those games. So when they come to that question about Felix Hernandez, you got to say, yeah, buddy, you've been great for us, and you were 12-12 and 13-12 in a lot of years where you should have had 25 wins.
I think what they should do is just put him on the DL. You can justify some kind of injury out of his performance right now. Give him a break.
Yeah, instead of demoting him, right? But, yeah, if it comes to that, they got to make that decision. Then they have to make the decision that's best for the club. And if the decision is best for the club not to parade a guy out there with a +7 ERA, then, it makes perfect sense to me, right? With the Yanks and CC Sabathia, CC's been good over the last 2 years. He's been okay this year. He's been competitive. He keeps the team in. But, come stretch time, if CC Sabathia is the 5th weakest link on that team.
It's funny you mentioned CC because this thing that Felix Hernandez is going through right now, the first name that came to mind for me was CC Sabathia a number of years ago when he was kind of transitioning out of his dominant ace.
You don't have 95 in the gas tank.
He
anymore.
hadn't quite learned how to utilize his other pitches yet to not rely on the heat so much, and he did a very good job of reinventing himself as a pitcher, and maybe Felix can do the same, but right now things aren't looking so hot for him.
Nope. Just to close up the AL West here, Oakland hanging tough, 28-28. I don't really foresee anything much out of them. And then the Texas Rangers, fresh off a series win at home against the Yankees, got to feel a little good about that. But there's another team that could be sellers coming up here soon. We mentioned Cole Hamels, but some bullpen pieces down there, the Alex Claudios and maybe Keone Kela. There's guys down there that could get a fair trade, back for them to kind of kickstart that rebuilding process down there in Arlington. Going into a new stadium, it seems to be the thing when teams get new stadiums, they bust it down for a few years like the Braves did. Bust it down for a few years and then make sure going into your new stadium that you have a competitive ball club to put out there. Moving over to the National League East, two teams really separating. No, three teams if you count the Phillies. Phillies are 7 games over 500 at 30-23. The Atlanta Braves 32-23 and tied or a half a game back of the Washington Nationals sitting atop. A big change from the Nationals.
Yeah, they've won 6 in a row. They're 8-2 in their last 10.
We talked about them 2 weeks ago.
So they are finally
really, really scuffling. And now, with that pitching staff, who expected them to not turn it around?
Finally at the point in the standings in the NL East where we expected that they would be from the beginning of the season. So, yeah, they're 10 games above 500 there, and they've got some help on the way. We mentioned Adam Eaton,
Daniel Murphy.
Daniel Murphy's coming back.
Yep.
That kid Soto
He's been hitting well.
He's been hitting. He's been a nice addition to that team.
A really good addition, especially for being such a young kid. And when you run into a situation like that,
Bryce Harper, I think, is leading the league in NL in home runs.
How do you send a guy like that down? Once you've already started the guy's clock,
yeah, he's 19 years old.
You've got nothing else to really gain by sending him down.
And he's performing, too.
He's performing, exactly. How do teams justify sending guys like that down? The Yankees with Clint Frazier. Now, Clint Frazier, obviously not proven, but he's come up and he's had some real good flashes. He'd be starting in the outfield for a lot of major league teams.
I think part of the Clint Frazier thing was how he ended up getting the concussion in spring training. I think that
screwed him. Yeah,
that really set him back quite a bit.
It did, because I thought that the end of Brett Gardner is what was being handwritten on the wall there, with the way that they were utilizing Frazier in spring training. It just looked like there was going to be an ultra platoon in left field in Yankee Stadium, but it hasn't been. Brett Gardner's been swinging the bat okay, the last 4 or 5 games. I've never been one who's been short on my opinion for Brett Gardner,
he hit a couple home runs the other night,
and then
including
sat the next day against Keuchel, which
game tying home run in the 9th inning, I believe, right?
Yes. So maybe he's finding his stroke too. His first row in the seats at Yankee Stadium stroke, his power stroke. But interesting to see how guys who are major league ready. There's teams out there that actually have the ability to stash those guys in the minors. And, the Washington Nationals and Los Angeles Dodgers have a few guys that, they're keeping down. Crazy. If they're major league ready, get them up here, let them help your club, right? The Braves, still a great story, 32-23. The Phillies hanging tough, like we said, 7 games over. 4-6 in their last 10, kind of scuffling. You got to expect the Phillies at some point in time to either go in one direction or the other. They're a very polarizing team for me. I don't think that they're going to hang around 500. I think they're either going to just absolutely blow it up or they're going to go nuts and maybe win that division. It's just that they seem like very streaky to me. The Mets 1 game above 500, 27-26. You got to expect that they're going to be bringing up the rear just because of the strength of the top of that division. And the Miami Marlins have 20 wins. 20 wins. 20 more wins than I thought they would have at this point in the season. So I'm giving credit where credit's due to Donnie Baseball down there. 20 more wins than I thought you'd have.
Not the worst team in baseball.
Not the worst team in baseball. I don't even think they're bottom 5.
They're 4th worst.
Bottom 5. We'll give them bottom 5.
Say the Chicago White Sox are the worst. The Orioles are 2nd worst.
Yeah,
and it looks like
in terms of record, we're just talking about Cincinnati and
Miami.
And Miami are tied. Baltimore probably the worst team in the majors. Maybe Chicago, but Baltimore.
Actually, Miami
Baltimore's pretty bad.
Is also better than Kansas City right now.
Hey, look at that! So we got that going for us, which is nice. NL Central is being currently dominated by the Milwaukee Brewers. 15 games over. 18-11 on the road, or 18-10 on the road, 18-11 at home. Plus 34 run differential, 8-2 in their last 10. A great lineup. Pretty good bullpen. Who starts for the Milwaukee Brewers in the playoffs? That'd be the question for me.
That would be the question. And they've got a whole bunch of kind of guys who are performing, like your Guerras and some other solid pitchers.
You can't take anything away from the guys that they got right now because they're 15 games.
But there's nobody in that rotation that if you were going to be facing the Milwaukee Brewers as an opposing team that you're thinking like, oh man, that's scary.
No, don't
to be facing them.
What's scary facing the Milwaukee Brewers right now is don't get me to the 7th inning losing. That's what's scary facing the Brewers. You don't want to be outslugged for 7 innings and then have to face Haight or Knievel. All right, that's what you want to avoid.
Hader especially is just frightening right now.
That's what you want to avoid with the Brewers is the back end of that bullpen. But if you can get through 7 innings winning against them, you should be okay. There should be nothing that totally scares you about the Brewers. But here they are, 15 games above 500.
They're going to go out and get somebody.
I think so too. We thought that Arrieta was going to go there the whole offseason. That's where I thought Arrieta was going. I thought they were primed for that. And then he ends up signing with the Phillies. But they're going to go and get somebody, that's for sure. The Chicago Cubs hanging there, 29-23. The Cardinals 29-24, and the Pittsburgh Pirates 29-26. So a tightly packed within 5 games. The Central are 6 games, 1 through 4. One of the better divisions in baseball so far this year. Pittsburgh Pirates hanging around. What do you think about them so far? Clint Hurdle, that's your boy, finding a way to win with less.
Yeah, they're having a better season than I thought they were going to. Austin Meadows, the young outfielder they have there.
Another guy. How do you send him down?
He's phenomenal.
How do you send him down?
I think he's up for good.
Came up because of an injury. But
I think you might even see, if this continues, you might see Gregory Polanco start losing some playing time.
Or get traded.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not that, their record at 29-26 is great or even, possibly a playoff team at that record. But if they go on a little bit of a run again, they're well within reach. It's not, you look at Cincinnati, who's 16 games back. Pittsburgh still has a chance. They still have hope, and they've got some good things going on there. They have to have Jameson Taillon needs to figure things out. He's been having a little bit of a rough go of it lately.
Sean,
I think he's got an ERA in the mid-4s.
Yeah, he hasn't looked.
And he's a guy you kind of rely on. Is now with Garrett Cole
supposed to be your ace.
He's supposed to be your ace.
Supposed to be your young cornerstone franchise guy. Sean, interesting question that I have for you is making a playoff spot enough? Is that enough for a team to say, you know what, we'll abandon what we're trying to do here? Like a team like the Pirates. Okay, the Pirates are not built for a championship, not at all. And the Pirates will tell you that they're not built for a championship.
Sure.
But if the Pirates are hanging around the trade deadline for a wild card spot, is making the wild card enough for a team to abandon like a rebuild or abandon a sell-off at the trade deadline? Is that enough? Or do they look at the big picture and say, yeah, maybe we can hang out and make a run at this wild card, but are we realistically a World Series team?
I think it depends on the team. If we're talking specifically about the Pirates and, the history of them spending money or lack of spending money, I should say, I would be surprised if they abandon their philosophy of their youth movement there. But it depends, too. I mean, we're still 2 months away. If they are, say, they go on a little run and they are sitting in a wild card spot, say, on July 30th, then maybe you go out and get a few pieces, bullpen or whatever that you can plug in there that you're not going to have to trade away, somebody or several players that you really view as part of your future core. So you might see them make, if they're in contention or any other team and they're in a similar position, you might see them make a few moves, maybe trading some mid-level prospects for a couple veteran players that might be able to help you get over the hump to get into the playoffs. But yeah, I don't think it's worth it to make a huge splash. Go out and, like we said, try to trade for Madison Bumgarner or something like that. I don't think you would see anything even close to a major move for a team.
No,
like Pittsburgh.
Come the trade deadline is at a perfect spot in the season because come the trade deadline, well, maybe not so much with the new wild card format because so many more teams can be involved. With playoff contention.
Now, a team like the Angels, not to cut you off, sorry,
no, that's fine.
They're almost kind of very similar to Pittsburgh record-wise. But you look at
not in mentality-wise at all.
Team
not
philosophy.
Exactly,
and
not in
you look at
mentality-wise.
what, the Angels, they brought in Cozart, and Ian Kinsler and of course Ohtani. So they have already went into this season with the mindset of that's our goal. Whereas Pittsburgh is, okay, young players, a little bit of a rebuild. We'll trade Garrett Cole, we'll trade McCutchen.
And over 500's a bonus for us.
So now at the trade deadline this year, you go and you make a big move where you're trading some of these prospects. It's almost to the point of why did you even bother trading McCutchen and Cole in the first place?
Absolutely.
So you kind of have to stick to your strategy, but that doesn't mean you can't go out there and pick up, a bullpen guy that can pitch in the 7th or 8th inning.
I just want to know what reward is the reward that makes a team abandon their philosophy?
Where do you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line? Like the Yankees did a couple of years ago when they made those trades, and they still stayed in contention after that for the wild card. When they traded away Aroldis Chapman and Andrew Miller.
Yeah, it was the year they brought up Gary Sanchez.
Everybody's calling him crazy for what are you guys doing? You're still in contention for a wild card. But the Yankees knew at that point in time that now's the time that – they did a rebuild that takes most teams 5 years. They did in 4 or 5 trades. But, that's an interesting case, the Yankees a few years ago, where they're still in contention completely, but the end game, the end goal for them is the World Series. And it is not to make the wild card. The wild card gives them a springboard, like we said, team philosophy. The wild card gives them an avenue to pursue that World Series, for sure. But when you're getting to that wild card game and you're not really equipped, what's the point of not selling off? So the Yankees did it a few years ago. Maybe some of these teams that are kind of just hanging around, they adopt the same philosophy. Like, let's kind of hang around still, but let's get rid of the pieces that we can get a good return for.
Yeah, we'll know more about that in maybe a month or so.
Yeah, I hope we do. I actually, you know what? I hope we don't. I hope it stays tightly
bunched. Keep it a mystery.
I do. I hope it stays tightly bunched in the Central like it is, because it makes for interesting games in series in July and August. Moving over to the NL West, the Colorado Rockies sitting atop 1.5 games better than the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are just on a terrible, terrible slump. Like we mentioned, the Dodgers kind of surging, coming up and bringing up that third-place spot. They're 3.5 games out and only 3 games under 500 compared to where they started. Pretty good news for the Dodgers. The Giants at a half a game back of the Dodgers at 26-30, and the Padres bringing up the rear. Been able to say that for quite some time now. The Padres bringing up the rear.
Yeah, we probably have said Miami Marlins, Cincinnati Reds, and San Diego Padres bringing up the rear every single week. We've done the standings rundown.
And I don't think that it's going to change.
No, I don't
Not anytime soon. Not anytime soon. Not in any of those divisions.
Interesting note on Arizona, struggling slugger Paul Goldschmidt, who's
he hit a home run at home.
An awful year. Finally hit his first home run at home. He finally beat the Humidor for the first time this season.
El Humidor. They don't like it out in Arizona, I don't think. Don't.
No, they do not. So that's the rundown.
We're going to go quickly. We're going to get to league leaders. We're being told by our resident tech that we got to cut it short tonight. We got some updates that need to go on here at Disruption Networks. And while I'm on the topic of Disruption Networks, check out the entire cavalcade of stars on DisruptionNetwork.net. You got Ease, Beats, and Bizz and Home Free. Back Talk with Tommy Drama, and every single day during the week you got EC Radio with our boy Anthony Z. Donaldson. And, of course, we have our football podcast in the football season called The D-Line. And Wrestling Fandom, I believe, Wrestling Fandom Radio is a wrestling podcast that's new to Disruption Network that is getting rave reviews out there in the professional wrestling world. So check us out, DisruptionNetwork.net. Check out all our sister shows. We'd love to have you. And tomorrow, if you guys want to check in for a special episode of EC Radio, 2 p.m. On Disruption Network, you'll be able to catch myself sitting in, taking over for the captain.
That's exciting,
Z.
man. That's going to be cool. I'll be tuning into that one for sure.
Going to be interviewing the Dirty Heads. So for any of you music fans out there, check us out interviewing the Dirty Heads tomorrow, 2 p.m., promoting creative concerts and all the wonderful things that are going on at Saranac this summer, Saranac, Utica, New York. So Disruption Network, baby, we got a lot of stuff going on, and we can't thank them enough for giving us an avenue to talk about baseball. So Disruption Network.
Check out all the shows, too, on the website, DisruptionNetwork.net.
You're letting Sean and I fulfill our dreams weekly, sitting here talking about baseball in front of this wonderful setup.
I love how easy it is to get the old content. I mean, I shouldn't even say old, to get current content.
Yeah.
Like after this show is over, you'll be able to go right on disruptionnetwork.net shortly after, and it's going to be up there. And I go on the website all the time for some of the other shows, EC Radio.
I do too.
The D-Line. I check all that stuff out when I don't get a chance to catch it live and tune back in, and it's cool to be able to have that on demand and not miss any of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So disruptionnetwork.net, check it out. Another thing I got to mention is Friday, June 8th, a week from tomorrow, the Empowerment Center block party is going on, and you can catch Disruption Network down there. There's music provided by DJ Ease One.
Ease One.
There's grilling with the Utica Police Department.
What's the matter with you, boy?
Hands-on crafts from BB Design and Steamworks Ability Lab.
Angie Johnson out there doing big things with BB Design.
BB Designs, yeah. I took my daughter to a birthday party there one time. It was awesome.
My homegirl from high school doing big things. That's awesome to see. Awesome, Angie. If you're out there for any reason listening to the baseline right now, keep up the good work with BB Designs, and the community involvement in Utica, New York, and the surrounding areas is huge. And educating the youth about art and art activities is something wonderful, because art makes,
it is, yeah.
Art makes the
and the kids love that.
Without
stuff
art,
too. Kids love that stuff. She had a thing set up at one of the events downtown last summer, and my daughter went over there and did a whole bunch of chalk drawings and painting, and she's been there for a birthday party, and BB Design's doing some great things. So they and Steamworks Ability Lab will be teaming up to do hands-on crafts down there. There's going to be seed bombing, a lead-safe demo, games, prizes. The Utica Fire Department's going to be down there. So that is the Empowerment Center block party. That's Friday, June 8th, 4 to 6 p.m. at the Empowerment Center in Utica.
A lot of good stuff going on here in Utica, New York.
230 James Street is where you can find that event, and a bunch of the Disruption crew will be down there and
outstanding. Be
broadcasting, and it's going to be a good time. So stop down.
Outstanding. So over to league leaders, American League batting average leaders. We got Mookie Betts, who is putting together one of the greatest seasons in the history of baseball so far in this season. Can't say enough about what Mookie Betts is doing. He leads the league, I believe, in average, on-base percentage, runs scored, doubles, home runs, RBIs. Just a disgusting year that he's having.
Who would you give MVP to today? Would you give it to Mookie Betts or Mike Trout?
I'm giving it to Mookie Betts, only because Boston is so far ahead.
I would agree. Right now the Angels, I believe, are not in a playoff position unless they're in the second wild card.
But close. I mean, they're having equally as impressive years, Mookie Betts and Mike Trout. But I mean, they're close. But Mookie Betts definitely by a hair. I'm giving MVP.
Where Boston is in the standings is the tiebreaker.
Agreed.
Right there.
Agreed. Because the word value is right in the award. So. Mookie Betts is getting it done for Boston. Not to say Mike Trout isn't getting it done, but Mookie Betts is definitely who I give the MVP to this early in the season. Michael Brantley, another resurgent year here for the Cleveland Indians.
Michael Brantley is back to being a superstar.
Yeah, and he was before the rash of injuries. Hitting .343. Andrelton Simmons with the Angels hitting .337. Jose Altuve .335. You expect to see his name somewhere near the top of that.
A few days ago, he had a hit in 10 consecutive at-bats.
10 consecutive at-bats. There's guys that have started 90% of their team games that don't have 10 hits for the season. Joey Gallo probably didn't have as many singles all of last year that Jose Altuve has in 10 consecutive at-bats there. So quite impressive out of Altuve there. And you expect to see his name. He's just a complete hitter. Awesome hitter. And then Gene Segura bringing up the top five at .333, having an impressive year for Seattle. NL batting average leaders.
NL, you mentioned Altuve is somebody you would completely expect to see in the leaders, and at the top of the NL leaderboard,
there's not
batting average,
maybe one guy.
Yeah,
one guy in the top five.
It would have been tough to call these five guys.
So Matt Kemp at .345, having a great year. 7 years ago, if I told you Matt Kemp would be leading the NL in batting average at this juncture in the season, you would have said, okay, Matt Kemp's being Matt Kemp.
Would have shrugged it off.
Right? Matt Kemp just being Matt Kemp. But right now, Matt Kemp is being the Matt Kemp the old LA Dodgers Matt Kemp, and it's nice to see. Scooter Gennett, my boy. He's doing me well this year. NL Player of the Week.
He's another major trade candidate, too.
NL Player of the Week last week, hitting .343 for the abysmal Cincinnati Reds. Freddie Freeman is the only guy in the top five that you would expect to be there, I guess. at 335. And Nick Markakis, kind of struggling the last week or so. He's down from 345 to like 332. Oh, well, right? 332.
He's
down to 332. And Odubel Herrera at 320. Your AL home runs leader, Mike Trout and J.D. Martinez tied at 18. Jose Ramirez with the power surge with 17 home runs. Mookie Betts, the aforementioned, up near the league leaders in home runs as well with 17. And Manny Machado, Mr. Trade Candidate himself, Mr. biggest free agent signing in the last 5 or 6 years himself, Manny Machado with 16. Over in the NL, you had already mentioned that Bryce Harper out to the early lead, up on Christian Villanueva by 4.
Pretty big lead there with 4 homers.
4 homers, 18. Christian Villanueva, who is available in the Electric Company League, FYI. 14 homers. Ozzie Albies kind of cooled off a little bit, but still there with 14 homers. Javi Baez and Travis Shaw, NL Central, dwelling with 13 each. Your AL runs batted in. You talk about having a great season for Boston so far. J.D. Martinez, can't say enough about him. He's hitting about 310 with 18 homers and 47 RBIs. Off to a wicked start there. Wicked in Boston. Wicked. He's wicked good. So Mr. Betts and Mr. Martinez just spearheading that Boston offense that is a ridiculous 90 runs up on their competition. Manny Machado for Baltimore, 45.
Manny Machado being second is very surprising.
Because they don't score runs.
I don't doubt the talent at all.
I
can't believe that there's been 45. Well, of course, how many homers
16.
does he have? 16.
He's got 16.
So 29 guys have actually been on base in front of him to be able to drive in. That's surprising to me.
Well, you expect to see him up there on a better year.
Talent, yeah.
On a better year,
the talent.
You might see him, higher than that. He might be blown away.
Doubting the talent surrounding him in Baltimore.
Jose Ramirez with 40, Mitch Haniger with 40, and Aaron Judge quietly, I guess, with 40. He scuffled a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but still among the league leaders in on-base percentage and runs scored. Had a tremendous 2-week stretch of playing in the field, Aaron Judge did. His outfield assists have just bailed the Yankees out of many spots. So for anybody that didn't think that the big guy could play the field, let me tell you something you haven't been watching. NL runs batted in leaders, Javi Baez having an awesome year with Chicago with 43. Eugenio Suarez, speaking of awesome years.
Speaking of surprising names to be on the top of the leaderboard for RBI.
Guys who are, trade candidates again. Eugenio Suarez with the abysmal Cincinnati Reds at 43. Freddie Freeman again up on the top of a leaderboard in the National League. Go figure. With 40 with the upstart Atlanta Braves. Washington Nationals' own Bryce Harper with 40. And Trevor Story with 39 out there in Colorado. Your AL wins leader. I have a feeling that we're going to see some of these names in a little while.
I think you will.
AL wins and NL wins leader really playing to the script here. We got Corey Kluber and Luis Severino off of a dominant start last night against the defending champions in the Bronx, both with 8. Justin Verlander with 7. But don't let that, he's in second place right now in wins. Don't let that confuse you. Justin Verlander has pitched like the best pitcher on the planet this year, period. Rick Porcello with Boston with 7, and Blake Snell, awesome young pitcher developing down there for a pretty, we say pretty bad, or I say pretty bad, but they're really not that bad down there right now.
He's the difference in why they have an above 500 record.
He's a difference maker, you're sure. Definitely. And a bright spot, if there are going to be any for Tampa Bay at the end of the year, Blake Snell certainly is going to prove to be a bright spot. Max Scherzer leading the majors in wins with 9. His teammate, and a significant lead in the NL, too. He's got 3. 3 wins plus over Steven Strasburg, his teammate. Aaron Nola, pitching pretty good for Philadelphia. Miles Mikolas. If you added Miles Mikolas,
I think he's a crawdad in our league.
If you added him, you are a waiver wire champion. 6. Gio Gonzalez with the Washington Nationals with 6 as well. Your AL earned run average leaders read like the National League earned run average leaders should in like 1968 before they lowered them, like Bob Gibson times. So I'm going to read you off this AL earned run average leader list, and you're going to think that we're one game in. Justin Verlander at 1.11. Corey Kluber at 2.02. Garrett Cole at 2.05. Charlie Morton at 2.26, and Luis Severino 8-1 at 2.31, pitching through the gauntlet that he's pitched through so far this year, facing Cleveland twice, facing Houston twice, to be sitting at 8-1, 2.31. Pretty damn impressive. Your NL earned run average leaders, Jacob deGrom, as we said, having an awesome year for the streaking Mets there at 1.52. Max Scherzer 1.92. Quite possibly the best pitcher on the planet. And Gio Gonzalez 2.10. Jake Arrieta having a great start to his career in Philadelphia at 2.16. And Aaron Nola, who we mentioned, having a pretty good year with the Phillies as well at 2.27. Edwin Diaz leads the AL in saves with 19, followed by Craig Kimbrell with 18. Shane Green, Keone Keel, and Aroldis Chapman with 13 and 12, respectively. Your NL saves leader, Wade Davis, who we mentioned before, having a really good year in Colorado, 18 saves. Brad Hand also got a mention on this show earlier with 16 with San Diego, so he's basically saved like every one of San Diego's wins so far. Juris Familia with 14, Sean Doolittle with the Washington Nationals with 13, and Brad Boxberger in his new role as a closer out there with the awful right now Arizona Diamondbacks. Yeah. I think Brad Boxberger was at 13 saves like 2 weeks ago when we updated. And your AL WAR leader, 0.9 runs above Mookie Betts. For as good as a season as Mookie Betts is having, Mike Trout is at 5 wins above replacement.
That's
right now.
insanity.
That's insanity. And maybe they've had a few more team games than Boston, thus accounting for.
To put that in perspective, that's almost double of the NL leader for WAR.
Almost double. So
just a little bit less.
Mike Trout at 5 wins, Mookie Betts 4.1, Jose Ramirez 3.7, Francisco Lindor 3.2, and Aaron Judge 3.2 would all be leading the NL right now. All of them. And your NL wins above replacement leader is Lorenzo Cain for the upstart Milwaukee Brewers, the National League's best record Milwaukee Brewers, and Lorenzo Cain anchoring it down out there, 2.7 wins above replacement. Brandon Belt off to a very Brandon Belt start. Hasn't really cooled off yet, which you would be expecting given his career track record, but 2.6. Freddie Freeman at 2.6. Travis Shaw 2.5, and the aforementioned Scooter, my boy Jeanette, Cincinnati Reds, 2.3 wins above replacement, which is essentially their entire season. So if not for Scooter Jeanette, even worse for the Cincinnati Reds.
Jeanette and Suarez there.
And that's your league leaders. Who are our league leaders brought to us by?
That was brought to you by Priceless Inspections, because JP, a good quality home inspection is priceless. Call Josh Amodio at 315-525-8725 for your next home inspection. He provides in-depth and detailed reports, thorough inspections, and he pays attention to details. Josh has been in the construction business just about his whole life, and he knows the importance of a quality home inspection. Call Josh before you put your home on the market if you're looking to buy a home, or if you just want to update your home. Josh can do all of that for you. Call him today, 315-525-8725. That's Priceless Inspections at 315-525-8725.
So his isn't 87 priceless? Or 525 priceless? He couldn't get that one negotiated out like Nick was able to? Too many?
Would need too many numbers for that one. I guess that he had to settle for 525-8725.
So what's that, man? Is that 3 up, 3 down?
It's time for 3 up, 3 down.
3 up, 3 down.
Time to talk some fantasy baseball.
Fantasy baseball with our man SPG, and I'm going to give the mic over to you, SPG. Here you go.
Going to go through the 3 up and 3 down here, which is 3 players trending up, 3 players trending down. There's a pitcher, and Dave called this one earlier. He said something about Daniel Megden in the comments in the show, but I didn't want to.
You got him on there, though, right?
I do, yeah. He's actually the first guy I have written down here. Pitcher for the Oakland A's, and he's got a pretty sweet handlebar mustache. You ever see that?
No, but you had me at handlebar.
He's almost got like a Raleigh Fingers type look to him. Like he's a really, really odd character too. He's got quite the personality on him. But Daniel Megden is pitching very well for the Oakland A's. He just pitched, I believe, a complete game shutout his last outing. So right now, he's got a 2.85 ERA, and he's got a WHIP under 1, 0.965. 66 innings pitched. Strikeout numbers are low. 43. You would expect it to be a little bit higher for a major league starter, but when you're putting up an ERA of 2.85 and a whip of under 1, you can kind of forgive a little bit of a low K per 9 rate.
So according to Dave, it was a complete game shutout last time out, and then today he brought a complete game shutout into the 9th.
Okay. So yeah, he's on fire right now, and those numbers that I'm looking at probably don't include today's start. So you're talking even better than what I had just mentioned there. So Daniel Magnon's my number 1 of my 3 up. My number 2 is another pitcher that kind of gets a little bit overlooked, a veteran guy, somebody we mentioned could be a trade candidate. Not a huge name, but having a good season is J. Happ in Toronto. J. Happ is, he's owned in 81% of Yahoo leagues. So chances are he's gone, but in the event you're in one of those 19% of leagues that does not have J. Happ rostered, he's worth looking for. And kind of the opposite of Daniel Magden, his K rate this year, his strikeouts have been ridiculously good. He's pitched 65 innings, 79 strikeouts. He's got a 3.84 ERA. He's 7-3 on a Toronto team that has really scuffled, especially the last month or so. So he's a guy to check out. If he's on the waiver wire, pick him up and keep an eye on him for Major League Baseball trade deadline day. I'm sure he's going to be one of the more sought after pitchers because compared to some of the other names out there, he might be much more affordable, but still a very effective pitcher to add for a contending team. And last but certainly not least of my 3 up, I had to mention him because he's been on a tear since he got called up to the major leagues. And week after week goes by, and I kind of figured, I'll leave it off there. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, and I don't want to be too much of a homer, but I have to mention Gleyber Torres.
How could you not?
Batting .319, 9 homers, 26 RBIs.
It's Gleyber Day. 17
runs, some major clutch hits. It seems like every other day I'm seeing some stat that's, Gleyber Torres is the youngest player in the AL to do this since 1941. Or, there's always these random stats out there.
Well, Sean.
That have been brought up for him. He's 21 years old.
Like
it's incredible
Gleyber.
What he's doing.
Torres is there.
That's right. That's right. And what he's doing is awesome to watch. And he does not look like a kid out there. He really doesn't look like a kid. He looks like a veteran.
He looks like the best hitter in that lineup. That's what he looks like.
Yeah, and they've started moving him up in the order. He's hit 6 a couple times in the last few days.
I need to see him hit 1. That's where I want to see
I would like to see him lead off too. But right now, the way he's hitting,
he's got the right kind of mentality. If you watch his at-bats, hit the ball the other way, hit it where it's pitched, don't do too much with it, take your singles, but he drives the ball. Did anybody really expect this kind of pop this early out of Gleyber Torres? He drives the ball. He hits bombs. So, yeah, I'm glad you got him.
By far,
it's not homerism when
the
dude's absolutely tearing it up.
The leader for 2 months into the season, AL Rookie of the Year. I don't think it's really even close at this point.
He might be close with his own teammate. Miguel Andujar, I think, is among the lead.
Yeah, or Tyler Austin's right
leaders,
up there, too, in
among the
homers.
lead leaguers in extra base hits by the rookies. So Andujar's having an okay year. Kind of streaky hitter.
They may have the top 3 rookie home run hitters in the AL. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know Austin was actually leading the AL in rookie homers a couple weeks ago.
When does Tyler Austin become the odd man out? Or does he?
I don't know if he does. They made the call to send Torres down, which was a bit of a surprise to me.
That was the right move.
But yeah, it had to happen. But it's a tough.
It came down to Neil Walker or Ronald Torres.
It's still a tough decision with what Torres meant for that locker room too. He was a good clubhouse guy, so it's tough to see him go. But you talk actual on the field skills, then yeah, it was the right call. Not to get on a tangent, but Gleyber Torres just killing it right now.
So there's the 3 up. Who you got for trending the wrong way?
So that's
who's on
up.
the 3 down list, the list you don't want to be on.
3 down, and it pains me to say this, but we talked him up so much over the last month that I can't help but throw him on here. Didi Gregorius. What a slump he is in. He's showing some signs of life lately.
Dave, if you're out there, buddy, I'll trade him back to you. I'll trade him back. If he comes back, and we talked about this, Dave and I, last night. Ever since Dave has traded him to me, he's just gone downhill. So, Dave, if you want him back for the betterment of the Yankees, take him back, buddy. I'll even take Cody Allen back off your hand, and maybe Cleveland won't be so much of a dumpster fire in the bullpen department there.
But I hate seeing it. But Didi's batting 151 in May.
After hitting 350 in April.
Slugging 215
That's not
in the
good.
month of May.
That's not good.
So he has shown a little bit of signs of life recently, but
hitting the ball hard.
He's hitting the ball hard.
The old Adam ball, though.
But he's got some work to do, and let's see what he's got here. I've got faith that he can turn it around. So Didi is my number one on the 3 down. Number 2 is a player I mentioned from the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he's a player that I traded for this past week.
Inexplicably traded for, but the buy low.
It's an obvious buy low thing. I needed to free up a roster spot because I was going to have to drop somebody anyways. I traded Michael Brantley, who is having an all-star year is probably an understatement. He's having a great year. And I traded Encarnacion for Paul Goldschmidt. So a lot of that is based on the assumption that Paul Goldschmidt will bounce back and be somewhere close. Doesn't have to be Paul Goldschmidt from last year, but be somewhere close to that. We'll see if that happens. He just hit his first home run at home. We talked about that. He's also showing some signs of life at the plate. Long way to go. When he's playing well, he can steal you a whole bunch of bases too, which is not the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Paul Goldschmidt. But he can swipe you 20 bags. So
all the tools
for Arizona's sake and also for my sake in fantasy baseball, I hope Paul Goldschmidt can turn it around here. But definitely wanted to throw him on the 3 down. He probably could have been on the 3 down list every week in May.
And so now we got 2 away. Who's your third out?
Sean Manaea, pitcher from the Oakland A's, a pitcher who threw a no-hitter earlier in the season, I believe against the Boston Red Sox, and just lost it. And it seems like it happens every year. He's one of those guys that is highly touted, and he shows a glimmer of hope to fulfilling the potential.
He looked unbeatable in April.
But he does similar things almost every year, and then you kind of get hooked back into it, and then he just lets you down. So Manaea's stats are not that good. I mean, his overall numbers don't look terrible right now. He's got a 3.6 ERA, 5-6 record.
But not really telling the tale about how the entire season.
But if you look at the splits there, let's see, in May, 7.18 ERA. So that tells you how good he actually was at the beginning of the year. It's almost like the pitcher version of Didi Gregorius right here.
Ouch.
He had a 1.0 ERA in April, and he still has a 3.6 ERA, even though he's got 7.18 over the month of May. So, the young pitcher from the Oakland A's, Sean Manaea, is 3 down.
Dave out there checking in, talking about Nady Eovaldi. Touched on Nady Eovaldi earlier in the show, Dave. He did look good yesterday. The velocity seemed to be there. But he did go to that glove an awful lot for that pine tar. I don't know if you happen to notice that. But we talked about him earlier on the show.
Must have picked that up from Michael Pineda.
Very good insight on his return to the majors. Potential trade candidate out there in Nady Eovaldi. So
he hung out with Michael Pineda too much when they were teammates with the Yankees.
Yeah, that Michael Pineda had it on his neck. There's another guy. Is he ever going to come back? He's got to be due back sometime this year as well.
I haven't heard anything about him.
Isn't he a Minnesota Twin?
He is a Minnesota Twin. I have not heard any updates on Michael Pineda.
So yeah, that's 3 up, 3 down. If you're paying attention out there and you're a fantasy buff and you're looking for some guys to go after and they're available, listen to Sean. He knows what he's doing. He's been up near the top of that league for a very long time. Our resident fantasy baseball expert, Mr. Sean Patrick Gaffney. Thanks for the 3 up, 3 down. We're going to get into one of my favorite parts of the show right now. We're going to get into the 7th inning stretch. And today...
Yeah, it's a fun topic, too.
Today's 7th inning stretch is dealing with one of my very favorite topics in the world of baseball, pitching. Starting pitching, to be precise. And Sean and I are going to give our list of our top 7 Major League Baseball pitchers
this
right
was
now.
a fun one, but it was a really tough one to cut down to just 7 names.
I agree. And I'm hoping here that we don't have the same 7. And I did cut mine down to 7. I'm going to get jaunted a little bit by some of these guys out here listening because I got a couple guys that I may or may not own. But still, same thing. They're good, so how can I keep them off my list? But no, seriously, I tried to really hone in on the 7 best in the game right now, who I would go out and get if I were to be in a position to run a major league franchise. These are the go get guys, in my opinion. So, you want me to start it off? You want to start it off? Go ahead.
I'll start it off, and I'm going to mention some honorable mention names, and I guarantee that you probably have at least one of these guys, if not 2 of them, on your list.
Okay.
But they didn't make mine, but they were so close, I had to at least throw their names out there. Jake DeGrom,
Okay.
he's leading the NL in ERA. We already talked about it. As much as I wanted to put him in there, the 7 guys that I did decide on, I just couldn't slide him ahead of any of those guys. Noah Syndergaard, same thing. His injury history worries me, but that wouldn't necessarily have stopped me from putting him in my top 7 because there is at least one guy with significant nagging injury problems. And one other guy who's been injured the last couple of years from various ailments, Mad Bum, who we covered a little bit on the outside looking in. But those guys all deserve mention. When they're healthy and on their game, you can put them in this list and probably towards the top of it when they are actually at their best. So that's the 3 guys I left off. Getting into the guys that I have on the list, coming in at number 7 from the Houston Astros, Garrett Cole, having just an amazing year, as all of these guys are. You know, every one of these guys you'll be able to say that about. But he's got a 5-1 record right now, 2.05 ERA, 109 strikeouts in 74 innings pitched, and his whip is 0.83.
Outstanding.
Having an incredible year, his first year over from the Pittsburgh Pirates, worth everything that Houston gave up for him. And, you know, from a Yankees fan standpoint, too, this kind of makes me a little envious to see Garrett Cole out there killing it because he was a major target for the Yankees in the offseason. But they stood their ground, and they didn't give up what they thought was too much.
But the Yankees are going to turn around at this trade deadline, and they're going to trade the pieces that they could have traded for Cole. So it might even sting even more, depending on what the yield is for what they end up trading.
Right.
Frazier or Andujar, if they end up letting those guys go and moving on that, those were the guys that they could have given up for Cole. So you're going to automatically be comparing whoever the Yankees go out and get for those guys. You're going to automatically be comparing him to Garrett.
Yeah,
and it's an automatic comparison.
Not to go back to fantasy baseball, but that's somebody who I've bugged Dave about all season. He's not budging. So
why would you?
Yeah, of course. I don't blame him one bit.
I'm going to go with somebody that I own currently right now for my number 7. And not because I own him. I do have a chance to watch him pitch now every week. I make sure that I tune in. And we're talking about strictly right now. We're talking about the starters in the game right now. So I don't want to hear our boy Robbie Danger. Robbie, if you happen to watch this show or anything,
I'm glad you brought Robbie up.
We hope that you're feeling better.
Get well soon, buddy.
We know that you're out there. You had a little bit of a rough time this last week and a little bit of an injury. So Robbie, if you're out there listening, we're hoping that you're getting better, and we're expecting stranger danger to creep up the standings in the EC Electric Company Fantasy Baseball League.
Get better soon, buddy.
But me and him have had an interesting go-around about the Big Maple, James Paxton.
Yeah,
and so we're not talking about the fact that he hasn't made over 130 innings in his career and this, that, or the other. I'm not. Right now, currently in the game from last year, he's 16-6, 11.5 strikeouts per inning, a whip around 1. An ERA slightly under 3. And in the American League, we're being very spoiled right now with the ERAs in the American League. An ERA around 2.9 in the American League used to be tops. They used to be up among the league leaders and may end up being among the league leaders near the end of the season. You're not going to see Justin Verlander hang around the 1 mark for the entire season, or maybe you could. But James Paxton out there already has a no-hitter this year. He's got a 16 strikeout game. Goes deep into games, which is something that he hasn't been able to do the last couple of years. But right now, certainly pitching like a top 5, top 3 pitcher every time that he takes the ball. He's an ace in the truest sense of the word. But the 11.5 strikeouts per 9 and the dominance from the left-hand side that he's shown this year certainly merits him being in the top 7 on my list. So I got the Big Maple, James Paxton, number 7.
Number 6 on my list is one of my favorite pitchers to watch, and part of that is probably because he's on my favorite team. But he is must-watch baseball for me, and that's Luis Severino.
Too low.
I figured you would probably say that. I had a feeling you have Luis Severino way high on this list, but
I'm going to surprise you with where I have him slotted.
I'll tell you
it's not
the
true homerism, but you have him too low right now.
I'll tell you the reason why I have him that low.
Sample size
is you can say 6 is low, but still I'm saying he's a top 6 pitcher overall in the game.
Okay,
and it's partly it's sample size, and most importantly. And he has a little bit of it now, experience in the postseason. After last year, they made that pretty good run, right to Game 7 of the ALCS, and he was good for most of that run. But what sticks out to me a little bit, and I know him being young and having the experience now, I wouldn't expect this to happen again. But I think about that start against the Minnesota Twins in the wild card game, and not having that experience of having been there as an ace for a playoff team. So that's why I kind of bumped him down, if you will, to 6 on my list. But that's not taking anything away from him. I still think he's a top 6 pitcher in the game right now. 8-1 record, 2.31 ERA, 92 strikeouts, and 78 innings pitched. And he is a true ace. And he's
a stopper.
He's still a kid too. He's still young. But very, very young player. He's only 21 years, or he was 21 years old when he came up. He's only 24 right now.
So I got him on my list, obviously, but I'll spend a little more time talking about him now because just we're on the topic of him. He's a stopper. He hasn't been anything short of a stopper all season long. He had a hiccup, 1 or 2 games. He had a hiccup against Boston earlier in the year where he didn't have such.
You can't blame anybody.
No.
Almost everybody has struggled against Boston except for Blake Snell this year.
What I like the most about Luis Severino is that not only does it feel like he's emptying the tank on every pitch, his tank is deep. His 103rd pitch the other night was 99 miles an hour. That's 103rd pitch of the game. After grinding, he didn't have necessarily his best game against the Astros and still grinded out what would be considered by most a dominant performance. So watching him perform in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings of games and throwing 98, 99 is just, it's remarkable to me. And, I'll stay off the homerism as much as I can about Luis Severino, but in terms of must-watch baseball, that's it for me right there. That's my must-watch guy in Major League Baseball right now. I'm excited for when he actually really learns how to pitch. Because right now he's a thrower, and he's got a great repertoire, and it's working for him.
Yeah,
and
he's only a 24-year-old kid.
He's got a wipeout slider and a 99-mile-an-hour fastball with movement. He's Pedro reincarnated. That's what he reminds me of Pedro Martinez. When he starts relying the 3rd time through the order, 2nd time through the order, he starts developing that choke change, that Pedro Martinez lazy changeup. He's going to throw no-hitters. That's what Luis Severino's going to do. So Luis Severino, I got him a little higher on my list, but yeah. And
I certainly can't blame you for putting him higher. I completely get that.
My next guy is somebody you had in your honorable mention, actually, so you were right that I would have him. I'm going to go, Noah Syndergaard was a guy that I would probably have in my honorable mention. All right. The Mets are in a really good spot to have 2 guys like this at their disposal, but I got Jacob deGrom as my number 6 starter in Major League Baseball. We've already talked about how he's leading the NL in ERA, having a tremendous year, but he's put together quite a career over this early portion of his career. And so, yeah, Jacob deGrom, nothing bad I can say about the guy, and definitely somebody that fits into every rotation in the game. So Jacob deGrom, my number 6.
Coming in at number 5 for me is a frequent name for many years on these top pitcher lists. And for many years, he was the number 1 on almost every one of these lists. Clayton Kershaw.
Okay, so we'll just cut to the chase, and I'll say that I got him as my number 5.
Okay, so Clayton Kershaw, he's coming back tonight. He'll be starting here in a matter of probably, I think, less than an hour. He's slated to pitch his first game off the disabled list. Just what more is there to say about Clayton Kershaw? Of course, there is major injury concerns. He's missed significant chunks of time over the last several seasons with injuries. But when he is healthy, And if you could throw all that injury question stuff out the door, he would be my runaway number one.
11 years, 61.8 wins above replacement in 11 seasons. He averages to a 6 WAR pitcher for his career every season. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. So minuscule numbers across his entire career.
If you discount his rookie year,
where he was 4.26,
where he only pitched 5. Let's see, no, he went 5 and 5. He pitched. He started 21 games in his rookie year. If you discount that, he has never had a year with an ERA
over 3.
And
he had a few under 2.
A lot of years, yeah, probably half of those years are close to it. Maybe a third of those years were under 2. Even last year, he was 18-4, 231 last year.
The most surprising thing about this entire list so far is that we both have Clayton Kershaw number 5.
Yeah, I mean, right? What's that tell you about the injury concerns in how the season is?
And what's that tell you about
so
the guys that we have above him? And it's the injury concerns. That's really what has kept me down on him right now. If you're considering being a top 5 pitcher, down. But really, he's a guy that you take over anybody. He's one of those guys. You tell somebody, you can have DeGrom or Kershaw. Oh, really? That's it? Those are the 2 guys I got to pick from? So, I mean, it's not like, he's a step down or anything like that. But I got Clayton Kershaw number 5 just with you, so we can skip over it to your number 4. Who you got number 4?
Number 4 is another guy who's been around for a long time and is an old workhorse, I guess you'd say, and that's Justin Verlander. What he is doing this year.
Justin Verlander, number 4, huh?
Just that 1.11 ERA. Since he's been with Houston, his ERA is under 2.
Who out there, raise your hand by show of hands? I'm looking. I'm seeing to see who's raising your hands. Who sold Justin Verlander off? Who wrote him off when he was with the Tigers? I was
concerned about him. I was very concerned
I'll raise my hand because I definitely wrote him off when he was with the Tigers. But since he has been with the Astros,
look at those numbers.
It's just not. It's not even
since
fair.
Joining Houston.
He's 12-2 with a 1.09 ERA since joining the Houston Astros.
So he's got the 1.11 ERA this year.
And 1.09 since he got there.
And the 1.11 ERA actually increases his ERA from the time he's been in Houston.
Yep. 14 earned runs given up since last September. Or, when did they get him? July? They got him. Well,
yeah,
it was later. It was after the trade.
No, it was. I think it was the night of the trade deadline. It was just. It happened like within an hour of.
Justin Verlander has only given up 14 earned runs as a member of the Houston Astros. That is just not even comprehensible. 115.1 innings pitched and 14 earned runs given up. That's insanity. Insanity. 141 strikeouts in 115 innings pitched for Justin Verlander as a member of the Astros.
It was August 31st. So yeah, it was the non-waiver trade.
It was the non-waiver.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, Justin Verlander, you got him as your number 4. My number 4, I guess I get a little bit of the homerism yelled at me here, but I got Luis Severino at my number 4 for all the things that we just mentioned about Luis Severino. That's why I have him at my number 4. We're talking about right now, right now. So. I got him at number 4, just given the accolades that we just discussed and how excited I am for this boy to learn how to pitch over the next few years. But right now I got Severino at my number 4. Who you got for number 3?
Number 3, I got a big lefty or big lanky lefty from the Boston Red Sox.
Wow. I didn't even have Chris Sale on my list.
Chris Sale.
Isn't that nuts?
He's got 104 strikeouts and 75 innings pitched.
That's an error in oversight.
A 2.76 ERA.
Admittedly so. I left Chris Sale
and a whip under
off,
1.
And I should be scorned for leaving Chris Sale off. So sorry for any Red Sox fans out there listening. My fault. But no, Chris Sale on my list. But damn, yeah. Chris Sale has got to be the matchup problem for no lefty in the world wants to step in against Chris Sale. Not one of them wants to do it. So no arguments out of me for having him at number 4, and I didn't even have him, number 7, which in hindsight maybe the Big Maple or Jacob deGrom, behind Chris Sale. But still, I'm glad that we have variety on our list right now. So my number 4, or what are we at, number 3?
Number 3. What's your number 3?
I'm going to go with Corey Kluber, 2-time Cy Young Award winner, ERA title winner.
Just so we can group this discussion for my number 2, I have Corey Kluber at number 2.
2.02, 8-2 right now this year. 88 strikeouts and 84 innings pitched and a .839 whip, pitching again like a Cy Young candidate. Unfortunately for him, he's got guys like Morton, Verlander, Severino. He's got a lot of a lot of things to contend with this year to go out and win the Cy Young again, but certainly pitching like a Cy Young caliber pitcher again, Corey Kluber. For our boy Dave out there, got to be happy that we're mentioning Corey Kluber so high on our lists at number 3 and number 2. At my number 2, I got somebody that you had a little further down your list, but right now, we're talking about right now. And right now, baby, there ain't many pitchers pitching better than Justin Verlander. In my opinion, only one pitcher, because I got him as my number 2. So Justin Verlander, for all the things that Sean just said, 1.11 ERA, a 1.14 or 1. Whatever we just said,
and he really
for his whole time with Houston.
He really proved he can do it in the postseason last year too. He was incredible in the postseason last year.
One of the things that I love about Justin Verlander is one of the things, it's exactly opposite of what I just said about Luis Severino. So Luis Severino throws 99 from the get-go. He's throwing 98, 99 on the corners, and when he's ending the game, that's how hard he's throwing. He doesn't lose much out of the tank. Justin Verlander is a crafty guy in terms of what he's got in the tank, and he knows what he's got there, and he starts off slow. He throws strikes, a lot of strikes, he works fast, and he starts off 92, 93 first 4 or 5 innings. And then as he gets loose and gets it starting to flow, 96, 97 on you, and he just becomes more dominant as the game goes on.
He does.
He's learned, so it seems, tough to say that a 2-time Cy Young Award winner has learned how to pitch now. And not to throw, and nobody would ever really classify Justin Verlander as just a thrower, I guess. But it just seems that he's elevated his pitching, versus throwing. His craftiness just seems to be elevated now from where it was in Detroit. He looks like the Justin Verlander old, and even better if that's possible.
This is the best he's ever looked.
The former MVP, former Cy Young Award winner, and looking better than he has ever looked in his career. So right now we're talking about best pitchers in the game on this day. I'm taking Justin Verlander as my number 2, which brings us to both of our number 1s. And I can only assume, since he hasn't been mentioned on your list,
just going to say that since I think it's pretty obvious we do agree on the number 1.
Hasn't been mentioned on my list. I think that we both probably have Mad Max Scherzer of the Washington Nationals as our number 1 pitcher in the game. So what do we know about Max Scherzer?
Well, if we're talking just this season, he's got a 9-1 record, a 1.92 ERA.
Is that it?
His whip, 0.854, and 120 strikeouts in less than 80 innings pitched.
So if any novice baseball fans are out there, you like the game, but you're not really into the stats, what we mean by when we say whip is walks and hits per inning pitched. So it's basically a metric.
It's basically base runners per inning.
Lets you know how many base runners per inning the guy is giving up. And anything under 1 is pretty remarkable. Giving up less than a base runner per inning is pretty much going to lead you to a win, probably. So Mad Max is one of the best out there at not allowing base runners, one of the best out there at striking people out, going deep into games. He's a workhorse. He's a 200-inning guy where, years ago we would have been like he's a 300-inning guy, but he's a 200-inning guy. The cornerstone of any franchise out there he would be. I think he would be the ace on any team, right?
Oh, yeah.
Even if you added him to Houston right now, I think Mad Max goes to number 1.
That's why we're saying he's our number 1.
And what did Dombrowski do in Detroit?
Right.
Having Verlander and Scherzer on the same staff. And Rick Porcello.
Even having David Price there when he was
And David Price. How do you not win a title with those 4 guys in your rotation? I don't understand it. But
and in his time with Washington, too, his whip, his walks and hits by innings pitched, per innings pitched, is under 1 for his entire career in Washington. It's 0.922. That's 5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
Less than a base runner per inning.
His whip is under 1. Yeah, it's incredible. 2.67 ERA in that time period. What more can you say about Max Scherzer? So that's our 7th inning stretch. we're going to wrap up the show today with our Out of the Baseline segment. And Out of the Baseline is brought to you by Steet Ponte Volkswagen. Stop down to their showroom at 5046 Commercial Drive in Yorkville, New York. See why it's easy to do business with Steet Ponte Volkswagen. Check out their website at steetpontevolkswagen.net. And one of the reasons why I wanted to save the Steet Ponte Volkswagen sponsorship for Out of the Baseline this week is because my Out of the Baseline involves a vehicle. And that is former New York Met and Philadelphia Philly, Lenny Dykstra. I don't know if you saw, JP, what Lenny Dykstra did.
I saw it. Oh, Nails.
A week or so ago. Yeah, Nails got himself into some more trouble. So the story goes, he calls an Uber for a ride. He gets into the car, and then he demands that the Uber driver changes to go to somewhere else. And then he puts a gun to the guy's head, and he had a whole bunch of cocaine with him. And the Uber driver drives to the police station, and he's beeping the horn, trying to get the attention of the police. And then he drives in front of the police station now, all while Lenny Dykstra has a gun to this guy's head. And he's beeping the horn outside the police station. Finally, he just opens the door. He runs into the police station and locks Lenny Dykstra in the vehicle. And Lenny Dykstra was arrested, and his mugshot was posted all over the place. So Lenny Dykstra, you
are out of the baseline. Well, I gotta have an honorable mention quick before we close up the show for the out of the baseline. There's always this talk about how Major League Baseball doesn't employ umpires, so they are the show. They're supposed to be just a piece of the game, but not supposed to be the whole show, right? Angel Hernandez has gone out of his way many times to make himself the show.
He has.
So last week against the Brewers, or in a game between I should say against the Brewers, because he was against the Brewers. Yeah. It was the Diamondbacks and Angel Hernandez against the Brewers.
Corey Knebel was on the mound.
Corey Knebel on the mound, and go look it up. Angel Hernandez, Corey Knebel. If you have an opportunity, go look it up on YouTube or Google it. Just egregious ball and strike calling. And then giving Craig Counsell the old heave-ho, no good. So Angel Hernandez, in my opinion, I'm going to throw you out of the baseline this week. So Angel Hernandez, you're out. You're out of the baseline, Angel Hernandez. And we're out of the baseline right now. We're going to close up the show here. Again, we'd like to thank all our sponsors, Priceless Inspections and
Nick Ponte Volkswagen,
Nick Pasalacqua, and everybody here at Disruption Network, disruptionnetwork.net. Check out all the good content, and while you're out there, try to keep it inside the baseline, or we might call you out. Until then, thanks for checking us out. We will be back on our regular scheduled night this Sunday with a pre-draft special. I believe we're going to talk all about the draft.
a little bit about the upcoming draft.
We're going to talk about some organizational
needs. Which starts on Monday, so the day after our next show. It'll be draft
Trying
eve.
to get our boy Caleb to come on and talk some prospects with us. So stay tuned to the baseline for us. And until then, keep it inside the baseline, or we will call you out of it. For now, I'm JP. Here's SPG. And we're happy. We're out, man. Thanks.